Hello, everyone, and welcome to our CNI Beyond the Buzzwords interview series, where we go beyond surface level conversations to explore what truly drives or blocks creativity and innovation in organizations. Today's conversation focuses on a critical challenge many organizations face: the decision bottleneck, where innovation actually gets stuck. While ideas are often encouraged, moving them forward is where most organizations struggle. Decision delays, unclear ownership, and competing priorities quietly stall innovation. To help us understand this, we are delighted to have with us Mr. Santosh Godbole, an entrepreneur, product leader, and technologist with over 30 years of experience. Mr. Santosh has built products from the ground up, transformed large scale business and execution models, and driven innovation across domains like video and image processing, networking, analytics, consumer technologies, and IoT. He is currently the CTO of Brisa Technologies and serves on the advisory board of Campus Vista. A co-founder of Sensect Applications and Metabyte Networks, he also holds multiple patents, reflecting a strong track record of turning ideas into impactful real-world solutions. With extensive experience leading across cross-functional teams and driving performance excellence at scale, he brings a deeply practical perspective to innovation and execution. Mr. Santosh, welcome to this conversation. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you, and I'm really happy to be part of this initiative. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you, sir. So my very first question to you is, in your experience, where does decision making most often break down in the innovation journey? And what does that cost the organizations in real terms, whether it's time, talent, or missed opportunities?
Yeah, good question. So, my take is that the decision making happens at every level in the organization. So you cannot isolate one person or one division, but of course it starts from the top. You must have heard this famous line that measure what matters. There is a flip side of it, which is people in the organization observes what leaders are measuring, right? So if the leaders are not talking enough about innovation, the impact of innovation, the importance of innovation, then people implicitly assume that innovation is not important. And when that happens in their subconscious mind, they just stop investing their energy on it. And that is really dangerous because the effect of that is quite often irreversible. You don't see the impact immediately. What you will see that over a period of time, your product's market share, for example, or services market share is declining. Your competition is doing much better. You had that fantastic employee who was full of ideas and innovation, has quietly left your organization and has joined a startup and doing very well because the startup is able to support her. So the impact is slow and long term. So look at the lack of innovation as more like a slow poison that it impacts on the long term, and when you start seeing the symptom, the cost of recovery is very high, or in some cases it's just impossible to recover.
So you say it's mostly a trickle down effect that has to come down from the leadership to the employees.
Absolutely. So it starts from a leader because everybody look at the topmost leadership, but then the decision and the behavior, it all trickles down at every level, all the way to a person at the lowest level of the organization.
Yes, sir. So my next question to you is, what kind of decisions tend to get delayed the most in innovation, whether it's betting on new ideas or allocating resources or scaling pilots, and why are these decisions so difficult to make?
So, interestingly, new ideas are plenty, and you will also find people who would, for the sake of saying yes, they will say yes. So, they will bet on the ideas for their own satisfaction, or just to demonstrate that they are investing in innovation. They may allocate some resources sometimes. But the biggest issue is scaling decisions. And the reason that's the tough one is because it means committing a lot of things. It means committing real resources, it means committing real mental bandwidth. Sometimes it also brings in disruption. So, for example, making changes to your workflows, the way you take accountability, the way you think internally and organize yourself. It also sometimes means that establishing a different messaging with the customer, bringing customer part of that whole journey of innovation. So scaling decisions is always something that delays the decision. But if you kind of dig deeper, I would say it's more of a cultural issue. In most organizations, what happens is innovation is seen as a separate activity. You will have a hackathon, you will have innovation day, you will have a dedicated team, but that doesn't really work. What should ideally happen, that innovation should become really part of your day-to-day activity. I mean, look at this way: if I'm an employee who is day in day out, and I'm thinking how to make my product or service better, faster, cheaper, easy to use, and if I'm putting my energy and focus to achieve this, innovation will automatically happen. The ideas will automatically come. Scaling will not be an issue because I will convince myself and people around me to put resources. As far as that becomes more of a culture, a lot of problems will get solved as far as innovation is culture is concerned. Having said that, as we all know, the habits and the culture takes patience and discipline, and that is what most organizations are not willing to invest, because that is a hard transformation, and that's why the scaling decisions are always deferred.
True, sir. That's a hard path to take, and as you said, it's a matter of culture, and culture doesn't change overnight. So it does take some time, but hopefully, creativity doesn't remain just as a buzzword as we're talking about. So my next question to you is, from the leadership lens, what is one hard decision organizations need to make to truly unlock innovation, but often avoid because it disrupts control, hierarchy, or comfort? You spoke about this, how, talking about innovation or focusing on it disrupts the daily flow. So, what is it that
Yeah,
organizations have to do in this regard?
yeah, and this is a difficult one for most people to really implement and to swallow. And what they need to do is to kind of provide a ecosystem that will let or that will give the permission to people to fail. Right, that's one thing that the leaders need to do from the decision making point of view. So if you ask me, the innovation really has four elements which are required. One is you need clear purpose. You need freedom to experiment. You should let people try out different things. You need a genuine protection that you are providing to people for failure and their consequences. Because when you are trying out new things, some attempts will be successful, some will not be. And they should not be held accountable and responsible and pay price for those failures. And finally, you need to have a sense of urgency that you need to inject into the system. And I'll actually take kind of a example. And you have seen a lot happening during the COVID time. So you saw that all those four elements coming together very prominently. During the COVID time, people had very clear purpose, which is saving lives. They had fear. They had kind of a protection from the failure, because a lot of problems were not solved before. and people were desperate to find a solution, and for that they were ready to really accept maybe 9 failures for one successful solution. You also had freedom of experiment, because many problems were not seen before. There was no formula given to you, so you had to try many different things. And finally, you had a sense of urgency because you were really running against the time. So all these four elements, you could see that they were very prominent during the time of COVID. And what that results into is you saw individuals, you saw organizations, both private and government, doing amazing work, amazing innovations. They're doing work that you could otherwise cannot imagine. They did, this innovation in the time frame they probably themselves did not imagine, right? So bringing these four elements together is very important, and the job of organization, the job of decision makers, is to create this environment so that people can innovate. So that's what I see as what an organization should decide and create that environment. And I know it's difficult because in some extent, to some extent, this is also like giving up the control. But it is important to take that hard decision and give that ecosystem to people.
Mr. Santosh, thank you so much for sharing such honest and practical insights. What really stands out is that innovation doesn't just depend on ideas, it depends on the decisions that move those ideas forward. Thank you so much for joining us in this conversation, sir.
Thank you very much.
To our audience, if this conversation resonated with you, here's something you might find valuable. At Invicta Learning, we have designed learning capsules, short, focused modules that address real workplace challenges and help turn intent into action. As part of our CNI Beyond the Buzzword campaign for World Creativity and Innovation Day, we are bringing you practical frameworks that help teams move from ideas to consistent execution. For more details, get in touch with us.